Clark and Perry.
In the place.
Clark and Perry. Do what it takes. Clark and Perry invite you to stay.
And explore the artistry in everything, live, on location alongside the Windy City's finest. Produced with the support of TELUS Story Hive, available on YouTube and TELUS Optic TV on demand, for a limited time only. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello and welcome to the Windy City's finest, on location with Clark and Perry. I'm Perry, he's Clark, and we are joined today, right now, by Kimberly Sibbald of Seven Skies Astronomy. Thank you so much. I just want to say thank you, first of all, for inviting us into your home, into your space, and just allowing us to kind of spend time with you and get to know you. And yeah, I think our first question for our little interview here is just around kind of inspiration. And I'm going to preface it really quick because we had the opportunity to kind of shadow one of your workshops. And one thing that I really appreciated was that the first thing you kind of did with everybody, other than get everybody situated and comfortable, was you kind of asked everybody what their inspiration was for being there. And yeah, I think it's something that we'll come back to quite a bit throughout kind of your feature of Seven Skies. And so is there like a specific moment or something that kind of inspired this passion of yours?
Inspired the path that I'm on, the trajectory, yes. Great to have you back in the house. Yeah, when I do the workshops, I really like to understand why people are there. What made them choose to come to my workshop? A lot of people are into photography, landscape photography, but they're choosing to do something a little different and step out of their comfort zone. So asking them what inspired them is always a great way for me just to make a connection with them and try and understand. For myself, I've been doing landscape photography for a very long time, but I think that one defining moment that changed our lives for the better was I was attending a wedding in Eureka, Montana for one of my girlfriends. So Laurie and I had gone down, taken a small telescope in our setup. We had just bought this in advance of that eclipse moment that we were going for in August. So this was June or July of 2017. We set it up at the campground that we were staying at, out in the middle of nowhere, dark skies. And we thought, we're just going to try, see what we can get. Set it up. I strapped my Canon 5D Mark II on the back, turned the ISO up to ridiculous, and we took a 2-minute exposure just to see what we got. Well, all of a sudden, the Whirlpool Galaxy showed up on the back of the screen. Laurie and I were high-fiving and dancing around like we had just won $1 million lottery. And I think it was that moment that inspired both of us to continue on with this. It was that, just seeing that and knowing that you can capture something like that. And like I said, people say change your life too often, but it really did change our lives. It got us down the path of doing astrophotography in the backyard and then eventually picking up and moving.
And I love that because it's a memory that you have together. And one thing that we've kind of had the chance to see is that you kind of do this together, you work well as a team, and so I really appreciate that aspect of it. And so this was in Montana. And so, like, is that something that you have seen again since that date? Like, is that something you can see here?
All the time, yes.
All the time.
So the galaxy is up. We haven't done a lot of galaxy work, though. I mean, that was our first moment, and we probably should. We should go back and start doing more galaxies.
Nice. Awesome. I think our next question for you here is just, what do people learn about you with time?
With time. I think people learn that I'm a little bit of a perfectionist and that I'm not going to do something halfway. I'm not going to put out sort of substandard quality in my perspective. So I persevere and I beat myself up until I get it exactly right.
Well, I think it shows just in what we've had the chance to kind of see and work with you on. And I guess if I were to dig a little deeper, like, where do you think that comes from? Is there other things you've done in life that maybe comes from, or relationships?
I think that's a good segue. I am an accountant as part of my career, my professional career. And I think that attention to details, you have to be so detail oriented. That's the brain, that side of my brain that I use on the creative side as well.
And it sounds like, you kind of have the opportunity to use that with astrophotography and photography in general, I'm sure. Can you speak a little bit more to like that creative side and where that kind of came from? Or
I think the creative side is a great outlet. We all get a little bit buried in our jobs and it gets stressful and you get down a little rabbit hole, or we sometimes say we're peeling onions back and finding all these layers. This is a great outlet for your brain just to de-stress and to get away from all of that. So it's really important for me to make sure I always keep that creative side going. And I know that when I'm getting too stressed, I start to drift away from creativity, and I know I have to draw myself back in.
Nice. Oh, there's so much in there, but I think our next question is, what is like an experience or adventure other than Montana and the galaxy whirlpool?
Yeah,
Oh,
the whirlpool gal, you got it.
yeah. Other than that, like, what's another adventure or experience that you've been fortunate enough to have?
We were very fortunate. We ended up in Tanzania in 2019.
Mm.
By then, we had learned how our equipment worked. We had sort of a portable setup. So Laurie and I took our entry-level mount and our entry-level telescope and then set it up in Tanzania. So to be south of the equator is a very different view of the universe than
Right.
to be north of the equator. And we're quite far north. Tanzania was 3 degrees south.
Yeah.
So that comes with its own challenges. What you do in the northern hemisphere to get your equipment polar aligned,
Right.
you can't do down south. It's very
Oh.
different. So that we had to overcome all those challenges and just seeing the night sky.
Right.
The moon, even. We all
Yeah.
look up at the moon and we see it every night. You go down there, the moon is opposite. It is reversed. And it's just, you sit there and you think, that just doesn't look right. And why doesn't it look right? And it takes you a minute to realize why it doesn't look right. And
Yeah.
it's upside down.
Oh, interesting. Oh my gosh, that's like messing with my mind right now.
It does. And when you're sitting
Yeah.
in a lawn chair looking up and you don't know that that's what's happening, you
Right.
just, you know there's something wrong. And you look at it and look at it and you try, your brain tries to rationalize what is wrong with it.
Yeah. I think, and honestly, what you just said there kind of inspired a question here around, I think human beings generally, I know I do, we have a tendency to try and rationalize things. And when I think of space, it seems a little irrational, just the scale of it all and just what's out there. And I don't know if that inspires any thoughts for you, but that was just kind of an observation of, again, with the creativity side of things and the more kind of detail oriented. I just think, I don't know, I just find that
It does.
interesting.
It
Yeah.
absolutely inspires a lot. So, if you look up and realize how small we are in the universe and how vast the universe is, and you start, it takes away the politics, the sports, the stresses. You forget about all of that and you put yourself somewhere else. And it's really a therapeutic moment.
Yeah, therapeutic. And I think Laurie kind of summarized this at one point where I think he said for him, and we'll kind of talk to him as well, but it was that idea of, yeah, regardless of your political leanings or what you believe, it's like one of those things that we all have in common. You know what I mean? Is that we all have a sky above us and, ground beneath us. And I don't know. Yeah.
Agreed.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. But that's part of, too many of us spend too much time looking down at our phones or our
Right.
laptops or, our tablets. We're looking at those. Start looking up.
Yeah. Start looking up. Nice. Together.
Together.
Yeah. And I
Together.
think that's, something I'm picking up on. It just a small example is between yourself and Laurie, and then what I see you're trying to do with the workshops, and just like getting groups of people together and looking up.
Yes.
I think that's awesome.
And then they take those photos home and they inspire their kids or their grandkids or their friends. And then more and more people will start looking up.
Yeah. Awesome. I think my next question is just in regards to, how do you cope when things get tough?
When things get tough, it's all about perseverance,
Yeah.
persistence. Laurie calls it persistence. I call it perseverance.
Yeah.
You just don't let something beat you. You have to take a breath, maybe step back from it. And I do that once in a while.
Yeah.
If I'm doing some processing and it's a really hard topic or target that I'm going after, I'll process for 3 or 4 hours and I'll step away from it. And maybe I sleep on it again
Right.
before I go back to it. It's perseverance.
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 Yes, which is different from patience. I
It
believe,
is.
right?
It is very different.
Yeah. What is different about those two things? I think we kind of touched on it at a different time a little bit, but the difference between patience and persistence, I think you kind of got it a little bit with the idea of not letting something beat you or not wallowing in a situation, not being afraid to take that step back or go and sleep on it. I don't know if you have any more thoughts on that. But.
I think a little bit of that. Patient people might ask for help more quickly. Patient people might just give up. They might just say, okay, this is beyond what I can do and I'm going to walk away from it. Perseverance, you're not going to give up and you are going to ask for help and you're going to struggle through it. And those struggles are always learnings.
Right.
So a lot of times I talk about, you need to make mistakes to learn. If you never make a mistake, you're never going to learn.
You're not going to learn.
You have to go out to the field and leave your lens cap on and try and focus and go, why is this not working? I just can't understand it. And then you realize, my lens cap is on.
Right.
This is why I can't see a star.
Absolutely, yeah. And then you come up with your own processes. You know what I mean?
You do.
You kind of through trial and error, not just successes. You kind of come up with your process and how you do things. Let alone, and then you move on to having 3 telescopes going all at once.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then another example of that is I had a student ask me, why don't I just turn my ISO up really high so that I can see the foreground and compose my image and then do that? And I said, you should do that, but learn from my mistake where I did that once and I forgot to turn the ISO back down. So now I have these super noisy images and my night was basically a waste.
Right.
So it's always learning something.
Yeah, learning something.
Those experiences stick with you.
Yeah. And I really appreciate, I think something I've kind of picked up quite a bit is that idea of you can always learn something from someone too. And I think I've heard that a few times of just like, you may have a certain amount of experience or know so much, but you can always learn something from someone else, be it a mistake. And sometimes I know for myself, I can't always just hear that somebody's had a mistake. I do need the right time and place, you know what I mean, to hear it and actually process it.
That's right.
And I think I really appreciate that. I don't know if you have anything more to add to that, but
I think just back to what I'd originally said, you've got to make mistakes to learn. That's how people grow.
Yeah, nice. I'm just curious, does that kind of stem from like accounting? Because I'm terrible at math, so I don't know, but I understand math, like there's usually a right and a wrong. And so is it more easier to kind of know when you've made a mistake? And how does that translate to astrophotography, where there is that kind of creative element of like, what's wrong and what's right is maybe a little more grayed? I don't know.
It absolutely is. So, accounting is very black and white. There's some gray areas where we push the rules a little bit. Math is very black and white. There's a right answer and a wrong answer. Yeah. Photography, it's very gray because what you think is perfect and is your mind's eye is not mine. You might choose to do something a little more saturated than I would do or vice versa. So it's very gray in photography, other than those major mistakes where you leave your lens cap on.
Sure.
That's a black and white moment.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. I feel like that's something I would do for sure, is leave the lens cap on a few times before
We've all done it, especially at night when you're out there and, summer Milky Way season is from about 12:30 at night until 2:30 in the morning. You're tired, you're fatigued, you're excited because you're seeing something, and you will just make those mistakes.
And like kind of building on that is that idea of like a phrase we kind of came up with is that the universe doesn't wait. And something I picked up on is that there's only so many opportunities to see the thing, and if the weather isn't cooperating, your opportunities reduce even further, and so on and so forth. And so I think that is kind of, for me, speaking to that idea of persistence and being like, kind of that dance with the weather and dance with the conditions. And
And what you're saying there, the universe doesn't wait. There's another great analogy there. A very good friend of mine had once said to me that even if you don't get the image, take in the moment, step back from the camera. You're struggling, you're frustrated, something is not going well on the camera.
Right.
Step away from it and actually see it with your eyes. And think about that moment and remember that moment. You've got the picture in your head. You may not be able to share it on social media, but you've got it.
Yeah. Have you seen the movie The Secret Life of Walter Mitty?
I haven't. No.
Oh my gosh. So anyway, there's a photographer in that movie, and there's just a beautiful moment where he's like photographing a snow leopard, but he doesn't take the picture. And he's talking with the main character, and he's like, sometimes I just like to, like, it's just for me, And I don't know, that's what that's
That's exactly what I was saying.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool. I think my next question, moving along, is just how do you celebrate when life's going smoothly? When you take the lens cap off and, you know what I mean? The weather's cooperating, or just elsewhere in life. How do you celebrate?
Laurie and I call those boring moments. And boring astrophotography is what you strive for all day long.
Right.
You've got 3 telescopes that are running, or 3 cameras, or even 1 camera running. Celebrating boring. So everything is working. There are no hiccups. Nothing is going wrong. you just sit back and enjoy the piece.
Right, and sit back in that moment a little bit for yourself as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
there's no stress right now. Everything is working perfectly. So just, sit back, breathe in, and enjoy.
I really love that sentiment of striving for boredom.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times it's kind of flipped where we're striving to be busy and we're striving to do this and do that and blah, blah, blah. There's something really special about that sentiment of, striving for boredom, which is just when things are working. Yeah.
When everything's working. And something I tell my team all the time in the professional career is celebrate the moment. We're very quick to say, that project's done, let's move on to the next one. And we never take that moment just to sit back and think, hey, we completed something, and that's pretty cool. So same thing, boredom. You've completed something, take that moment to be bored and enjoy it.
Nice. A somewhat natural segue, I guess, would be like other interests and hobbies that maybe you would engage in for that purposes of boredom. You finish the project and you can relax. What kind of interests or hobbies do you have outside of your professional life and your passion for astrophotography? What else is there, if anything?
I'm a sucker for making things difficult on myself. And I love golf. So another hobby or sport, I guess, that is challenging. You always have to practice it. You've got to continue to refine your swing, and you'll figure it all out, and you'll go out there and it'll all fall apart. And you just, what has happened? What is going wrong? So
Interesting.
I don't know why I choose all these things that are so hard.
You're a high achiever, I guess.
Must be.
And something I love about these things that I'm kind of picking up on is that idea of like, you have to go do them. Like, you have to go take the photos. You have to go swing the golf club. There we go.
Not a golfer.
Not a golfer at all. I always call them bats. Because in England, I think. Anyway, well, that's a long story. But you have to go do the thing. And so there's that element of like practice as opposed to just, theory and learning. It's kind of, learning through problem. I think my last question is just what are your kind of future aspirations and goals, be it for, Seven Skies Astronomy or just in your personal life?
I think our personal life is very tied to our astronomy life. We do a lot of that. It's at our home, obviously, and Laurie and I spend a lot of time together. So personal goals there are just getting our equipment working as well as we can, photographing or imaging targets that aren't the usual. They're not all the ones that you see all over Facebook or astronomy. We did a quasar a little while ago, things like that are just unique and different. So chasing those sort of targets. The supernova remnants, again, same thing. I love chasing those sort of objects.
Nice.
So it'll just be building on what we have.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I just want to pick up on that phrase of chasing these kind of goals, and just because it brings to mind that idea of like the journey versus the product, as it were, and as satisfying as it is to kind of get that photograph or something. I appreciate the value you seem to place on that journey and just doing the things.
The experience, the journey and the experience, not just the product at the end. It's great to look on the wall and say, wow, I did that and we got that, but it's the experience of those 8 nights sitting there trying to get it, and the struggles and peaceful moments, the boring moments.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the 8 hours of the telescopes working and then stacking like the milliseconds on milliseconds, and very interesting. Well, I think that is all the time we have for this part of the segment. So thank you so much for your time and energy. And thank you so much for tuning in. If you're on the live stream, stay tuned. If you're watching through Telesoptic TV or otherwise, feel free to check out another episode. Otherwise, this has been the Windy City's Finest on location with Clark and Perry. I'm Perry, he's Clark, and this is Kimberly Sibbald of Seven Skies Astronomy.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Clark and Perry
in the place.
Clark and Perry do what it takes. Clark and Perry invite you to stay.
And explore the artistry in everything, live, on location alongside the Windy City's Finest. Produced with the support of Telestory Hive. Available on YouTube and Telesoptic TV on demand for a limited time only. Terms and conditions apply.